Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Morecambe Football Club's Division, where we look back at the past 6 months, looking at significant changes and developments throughout the club, both on and off the field. I am delighted to say that I am joined by directors Charlie, Appleyard and James Wakefield, as well as Chief Executive Ben Sadler. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me. Before we get started, let's have a look back at some of the key highlights over the past 6 months.
Maybe support gets the crossing instead, where a flick header, it's going to be Aaron Wilding.
Yes! Come on!
Coming off the bench, it's to fire the ball into the back of Joe Day's nets and shows great physicality. Oh, he's going to chip the goalkeeper!
Yeah!
On Beyond Radio, corner comes in, Anthony O'Connor very nearly, and Diagaraga! Oh my goodness me! It's all, but here comes the corner. Morecambe's first, it's a really good one.
Yeah!
Has put Morecambe into the lead. Referee allows play to continue.
It's a great ball.
Oh, Stockton can get on it.
Yes!
Stockton can score his 20th goal of the season. Towards his right hand side, Joe Noyenga's going to get a shot away,
Yes!
and he's going to make it 2-0 to the Shrimps.
Yeah, obviously delighted. I think that last season was a magnificent achievement for the football club. And, this year, we're now in League One, and trying to regain our status in League One.
Right hand side on the byline, chips the ball towards the bar, where it's headed into the back of the net by Aaron Wilding. On to sort his feet out. Adam Phillips is bearing down on goal.
Yes!
It's made it 2-0 to the Shrimps.
Great
just
goal!
before the half
Come on,
time.
Morecambe!
Infield to Phillips, back to Stockton, who's going to put it into the back of the net for his 24th goal of the season. Inside the Morecambe penalty area, Cole Stockton's also in.
Yes!
And Cole Stockton scores his 26th goal of the season for Arthur Nahua, who tries to get it onto his right foot and gets the shot away.
Yes!
Arthur Nahua doubles Morecambe's lead just before the half time. The feet of Arthur Nahua on the edge of the box of Northern. Arthur Nahua!
Yeah!
We are staying up, say we are staying up. We are staying up, say we are staying up.
We're celebrating today that we're staying in League One, which is great, and I think that over the afternoon it's been a fantastic afternoon.
As you can see, a lot has gone on over the last 6 months or so since we sat down, since episode 1, and we'll try to cover as much as we can. And on that note, let's get straight into it. James, first of all, starting with yourself. Some key moments on the field, looking back at some of the highlights starting off. I think we were a week away from that momentous Fleetwood Town game where Cole Stockton sent over 1,000 Morecambe fans into delirium in the 90th minute with that spectacular effort from inside his own half. Just take us through that game and that momentous occasion from your point of view. And it was a hell of a way to end a local rivalry, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, and it was an incredible away following we took to that game as well. I think the away following this season has been something that has probably gone slightly under the radar versus the home attendances, because that's been such a big headline improvement. But away attendances were fantastic, and taking 1,000 away to Fleetwood was just awesome. I mean, it's the best winning goal I've ever seen in a football match. But more than that, it was a really good win away from home, and at that point, I think we were probably still winning reasonable number of games at that point. We were feeling like we could win lots of games. But yeah, it was incredible. I think I said closer to the time that a friend of mine in Australia who hadn't realised that our away kit is black had sent me the goal saying, "Have you seen this amazing goal from England?" I was like, "Yeah, mate, that's Morecambe." So yeah, that was pretty cool, but fantastic. A wonderful way to win a football match, and just one of many that Cole scored this season.
And then moving on from there as well, we put a few results together. A few went our way, a few didn't. As football is, it's very unpredictable. But talking about the unpredictability of football, I think January was that exact phrase. It was so unpredictable. I think we were 3-0 down against Doncaster Rovers at home, looking like we weren't going to get a goal, let alone turning it round and winning 4-3. And then also to play against Wycombe, who were favourites to go up automatically. That didn't happen. They ended up getting to the playoff final, ultimately ended in defeat. But I think we kind of derailed them a little bit in January. We were 2-1 down again at home, and we ended up winning 3-2. And Charlie, looking back at them results, they were huge results for our season in a way.
They certainly were, Ryan. I mean, if you actually think back to it, with Doncaster being 3-0 down, we actually had the return fixture against Fleetwood at home 2 games before and drew 0-0. Then the game immediately before the Doncaster game, we lost 2-1, I think, away at Crewe. And then we're 3-0 down at half time with Doncaster, and we were like, less positive people than me would be thinking we might be getting relegated, but I would always keep the faith. And then to win 4-3 against Doncaster was an amazing feat, and you could see it coming halfway through the beginning of the second half, I think. But that took us on to the Spurs game, which I think we're going to touch on in a while, which gave us immense pride and belief. And then I don't know if you were at the Wycombe game away, but we were 2-0 up, and we had a really great game against. We owed them. Then we went 1-0 down after 2 minutes. Amazing bullet header from Akinfenwa, and came back to win. And that was the kick we needed to keep going. Great times.
Yeah, and James, sticking with January, I think looking back at that FA Cup game, which Charlie just mentioned there against Tottenham, going to a stadium like that in the third round of the FA Cup and being 15 minutes away from making one of the highlights of the FA Cup. I think Newcastle beat Cambridge beat Newcastle day before as well. It was one of them days or one of them weekends where you could look at it and think, this is the moments for FA Cup upsets, and we were 15 minutes away from one.
Yeah, we were, and we were deservedly so. We played really, really well that day. I was actually sitting a couple of feet away from Daniel Levy, and when Kane and Moore were lined up on the side, ready to come on in the 70th minute or so, I leant over to him and went, "That's some cavalry, that." And he actually said, "Yeah, we're paying you due respect." And to be fair, they did make a difference, but we were fantastic that day, really, really good. And yeah, I don't think there was a bad performance. The mistakes towards the end were just sheer exhaustion from the effort put in, I think. Actually, to be fair, it was players still trying to play football, despite the fact they're away against proper Premier League opposition. So yeah, it was fantastic. Hopefully, it's one of many games like that we're going to have to come. We waited quite a while for a big third round in the FA Cup, and we got one last season that unfortunately fans couldn't be at. And really, really fortunately, we could take fans this season. But hopefully, we'll have more of those in the future, and they'll become more of a norm as opposed to one-off occasions.
Absolutely, and like you said, full credit to the team to try and still play football after them big guns came on. And we touched on it there about Stephen as well, Charlie, that he wasn't there that day. And I think February became a little bit of a defining moment for the club, with him and Dermot O'Carroll saying that their futures did lie elsewhere. They ended up quickly getting approached, and then all of a sudden we were down the road to St Mirren. Can you just give us a little bit of a flavour of what kind of conversations went on between yourselves and the board as a whole?
Well, it was an immense shock, Ryan. We like Steve, working with Stephen and Dermot, had a lot of time for them, and things were going not amazingly well, but things were going pretty well. We were still confident. We had a good manager and management team in place. We backed him fully, as you all know. And then, like I was speaking to James about it earlier, we're reflecting on the season ourselves, and people think there's a grand master plan going on behind the scenes. We literally knew. I think it was a Monday morning, 10 o'clock. Rod called a very brief board call to say this is happening. The board of St Mirren have speak to Stephen. Should we grant permission? We would always allow that to happen, as you know, and we allowed it to happen. And I think James, was it about less than 24 hours later? He'd gone, and I got to have a quick chat with him and Dermot, but it unfolded as quickly through the media as it did through the football club, and luckily we had an amazing manager waiting in the wings, fortuitously.
Yeah, I think it's a testament to how big a news it was at the time that Fabrizio Romario was one of the first to tweet, and he's one of them people that when he says something, people listen, and it just shows how far the club's gone. We get that coverage, albeit probably not the most positive coverage from our end, but as is life, we pressed on, and a new manager came through the door. When we say new, an old version, but a very one who's got rich history with his football club in Derek Adams. And James, what kind of conversations, again, going back to the conversation with the board and the rest of the directors, how quick of a decision was that for him to come back through the door?
Oh, I think the first thing to say is it's proof of the importance of never burning a bridge. in life, not just in football. We kept in touch with Derek. The relationship, regardless of his departure at the end of the last season, was always a warm and a friendly one. Huge amount of respect, I think, going both ways. Rod, Graham, myself, Charlie, Mick had all kept in touch with him. I'd actually been chatting to him the week before about what had happened at Bradford, and we'd had an honest conversation about that. So when we knew that Stephen was going, and we knew that Derek was available, and we knew that Derek was interested, it was a very, very short conversation. And that's not to say that we didn't properly get ourselves together and have a conversation about the options, but Derek is the most proven manager at our level. He knows the football club. He knew some of the squad, and Derek's a man who can compete regardless of the situation. I think he's probably one of the most competitive human beings I've ever met, and that's exactly what we needed at that time. We needed somebody to come in and get to grips with things as quickly as possible. So it was a relatively short conversation, a quick decision. Derek was keen, and we got it wrapped up as quickly as we possibly could, which I think in the circumstances was necessary.
Do you think as well that in respect to how things lined up with him departing Bradford, it was just a story that was meant to be, really, that he could come in and put his stamp on and have that little bit of a fairy tale ending, which we eventually got?
Weirdly, the week before, we'd actually had a conversation about the situation at Aberdeen, not knowing that St Mirren's manager was going to go up there and that somebody was going to call Stephen from St Mirren. So we'd been talking about Aberdeen and just having a chat about football and life in general. And so it was a very, very sort of uncanny situation in the way that it unfolded. But yeah, we all have a huge amount of professional respect for Derek, and we know he's the best manager at the level, and probably a better manager than an awful lot at the next level up. So he's just a very, 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 very good man, a good human being, good football manager, and just the person we need and we needed.
And I think it'd be remiss of me not to mention, I think he had a really difficult task in obviously changing the way that he wanted to implement his style on the team after them going from very possession-based footballing kind of style of play under Stephen, and him getting the players into his way of thinking. I think it was no win in 6 games that started off his reign, which was obviously a really difficult start for him and John McMahon, who also came back. And I think Charlie, he said that the international break where we ended up getting it off against Oxford, he said that wouldn't have made too much of a difference. I think he kind of said what he said for a reason, knowing that he just needed a bit of time with about that no extra pressure on, and that's exactly what it worked out, and ended up giving him an extra week to put his stamp on his side, and we came back fighting on all cylinders after that.
Yeah, definitely. Regarding Derek, I'm currently, I've got a background on here, but I'm on holiday. This time last year, I told him we had the playoff final. I changed our holiday dates. Didn't tell the wife until the day before we were going to Wembley. Went to Wembley. Went on a holiday, and then Derek resigned. I had to spend the first 2 days of the holiday then trying to convince Derek to stay. Didn't do the best job I've ever done, because he obviously didn't stay. But it was we were very, very sad. It's worth saying we're very, very sad to lose him, as everyone knows. And it wasn't maybe meant to be when he came back. And the reason I'm saying that is that we went. I think was the first game Plymouth when he went to Rotherham and Plymouth. Yeah, I think James and I were at Plymouth, and it was as if he'd never been away. It was literally as if he'd never been. You were there, right? As if he'd never been away. He was walking around. He obviously had a good name at Plymouth. So he was walking around the spot saying hello to everyone, and he's really positive. And 6 games that I win, but we played so well in some of those games. People think we haven't won in 6. So I know I'm overly positive sometimes, but we played Plymouth. We played Ipswich. Did we play Bolton? All those games we could definitely have won, and it was coming. And one thing we learned about Derek is he's quite clever with the press and quite clever with what he says. Doesn't say very much, but it's all very, 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 very intelligent way of communicating. And that we're all at the Burton game was just the biggest one of the biggest results in our history as a football club. It was absolutely tremendous. And he went with his a lot of the January transfer signings, and including Dylan Connolly, big impact invested in him. But with his old guard, Toombs and Liam and Aaron Phillips and Will Diggins, Cole Stockton, obviously, had got them playing together. And, there's a famous stat that I think Tom Collins put out that we had a 90% chance of being relegated after that Wigan game. 90% chance of being relegated, and we survived. And if you look at the league table, there's so many amazing teams, big teams. Most teams lost to those excellent opposition, prospects. So, 90% chance. That's what the Shrimps do.
I think you touched on it there. I think he was so close to picking up 3 points in his first two games. I think Ipswich, you said, I think it was the 86th minute that they equalised on. Bolton was the 95th. And it was just literally moments away from clicking, wasn't it? And that just shows how much the mentality changed when he came in, that maybe in certain other games where we conceded in the last minute that ended up in losses and draws, that we ended up seeing out games, especially when you look at Charlton Athletic further down the line. We won 3-2 there. Oxford, we got a really good result where we wouldn't have played our best, but we managed to grind it out. And then, like you said, the Burton game as well. That was a real kickstart to that April, wasn't it? We needed that result to give us a little bit of an impotence to go forward, and we ended up surviving relegation in the end, James.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was a number of games. As people know, I'm a great believer in tracking performance rather than results, because results are part luck, and if you look at outcomes, you end up with a slightly biased view on things. But the performances in several of the games were good. Actually, there was a game that we won that we probably, if we're honest, were quite lucky to win. But I thought we were unlucky not to win others. The big one for me was Charlton. That was the one that I felt really turned our season. It's a big club. We're playing away. I hate the idea that some clubs are bigger than others. It's a nonsense. Let's be honest. Charlton were underperforming last season. They were mid-table when we went there. But to go there and to keep going ahead and to keep attacking and to keep creating chances, and then to hold on when that stadium is really sort of baying for an equaliser, that was huge. And I did sort of feel as the final whistle was blown in that game, I thought, yeah, that's massive. That could be the job at least nearly done, and it turned out to be probably the real point at which the season turned. And a fantastic away day, and that's again just something to mention. The fans in those games, all of the games, whether we lost or whether we won, they were absolutely brilliant. And it doesn't matter whether there was 250 or whether there was more than that. The fans never once turned at all last season, and I think that's something that we as a football club can be very proud of, but also very appreciative of. Our fans stick with the team, and that's a big factor for us.
Looking forward, then, obviously the retain list has come out. Derek has decided that certain people's futures lay elsewhere, whether it's he's released them from the contracts. Players have returned to the parent clubs who we've had on loan, and there is people that are up for transfer as well. Just talk us through what the next steps are now. Obviously, I know you guys are getting a lot of hassle on socials when it comes to announcements and X, Y, and Z. And obviously, we can only announce stuff when we've got stuff to be announced. But can you just give us a little bit of an insight what it's like behind the scenes of a summer transfer window?
We've given Derek a budget, which we decided through some framework, from behind the scenes from legendary Graham House and Simon Baber, and we've looked at the finances for the next season. It's a competitive budget, much like last year, and we're hoping to add some really good names to the squad. Derek, as everyone knows, likes to have a smaller squad than most managers. He likes to have 23 players, 3 goalies and 2 in each position, which we're trying to furnish. As you know, he has transfer listed a few players, which he's happy to keep on the books and prove themselves. But if they do find an opportunity elsewhere, we'll wish them all the best. We wish them all the best. But we've got to make sure we get some churn in the squad to try and generate some new signings for the new season. I love an announcement. I absolutely love it. James loves an announcement. Ben loves an announcement. We're never, people see too much on social media. I haven't seen one true thing on social media since I've been a director in the last 3.5 years with speculation thing, apart from the aforementioned Steve Robinson departure. That's the only one ever in 3 years of looking at social media every day I've seen it's true. So people don't need to believe what they read. And go trust the board with the new addition, Ben, CEO, as extra board member. to make sure we do the best for the club. We'd love to sign as many amazing players as possible, but Derek is an excellent manager, and with him and John, I'm sure whatever squad we have available on the first when the transfer window closes, we're doing our absolute damnedest to be competitive and sustainable in League One. Anything to add, James?
Just to say that Derek's not made any sort of secret of the fact that he wants some different players in the squad, and that's his prerogative. And every manager's got a different view on players. There's examples of people like Liam Gibbo. He wasn't getting much football under Stephen, but he's very much a player that Derek rates and backs. And suddenly he was back straight in the team and actually had some of his best performances, some of our best performances of the season in those last few games. So managers have different views on players, and that's absolutely as it should be. Derek wants to move a few out to bring the right players in. We can't just conjure up money. I've said a number of times, we're not Ryan Reynolds and whatever his partner was called, and we have to stick to the rules. And the whole point of our strategy is to be sustainable. And so it's not about sort of sticking hands in pockets and just trying to find money that then we can't afford in a year or two's time. We do need some players to decide to go and play elsewhere in order to just free up some budget. But the budget overall as a number is competitive. And I think the other thing to remind the fans of is it's only the 31st of May. The transfer window is not actually open yet. We haven't finished playing quite this time last year. It's 16:42 on the 31st, and we were still playing at this point last year. And so there's not a huge amount of announcements generally in football, but they'll come in a rush in the second half of June and early July, as they do every season.
Yeah, and Charlie, you just mentioned it there in passing, but Ben, we'll go into it in deeper conversations coming up now. But obviously with your role and going from general manager to chief executive, having a place on the board as well, that'll become certain aspects of the first team side of it, and signings and announcements and working with the management side of it as well will come a big part of your job as well, won't it?
There's a crossover. As we've said all along through this process of looking at how we evolve, as a club and the board of directors, what we've got in place at the moment works really well for us. And every club's different, but it's not a case of changing that or ripping up what we do and what we do well. It's simply how do we add a little bit more that can make us increasingly effective and help with the outcomes. So whilst yes, it's another person, another idea or set of ideas on the board. It's been very successful for however many years now, and it's like I say, it's not a case of changing any of the processes in particular. It's just some additional support, some additional ideas, and somebody who on a day-to-day basis can really help make things happen, because I'm here, at the club, whereas unfortunately the board of directors, the majority have got busy careers and lives, and it's just the next natural step for a club. But I'll certainly help where I can, and where input's needed or where something needs moving, more than happy to get stuck in.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll stick with you if we can. First of all, congratulations, obviously, on the promotion. It was a richly deserved one. Just talk us through your feelings about the role and how much you're looking forward to that natural step up.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I had a few conversations last week with Beyond Radio and Radio Lancs. Went into some detail on where we're at and what it entails, and that was nice to have that conversation and share. But yeah, incredibly proud, of what we've achieved, and that's the club, that's the board, that's for the colleagues we work with, that's for supporters, the players. It's no mean feat, and certainly there was so much progress made before I joined last year, and before, like I say, some members of the team, yourself included, arrived. But it gave us a great base to go and really push things on, which, again, I think I've spoke a few times about it. Sometimes day to day, week to week, you lose sight of quite how much progress has been made. But you sit here now, and we've spent the last few weeks reviewing where we're at and not looking backwards, but assessing what's worked well and what we could do a little bit better next time. And that's when it hits you quite how much progress has been made in every department, because the challenge was there from the start. It was new territory for the club. It was new territory for the staff here. for the supporters, for the players, obviously. And you have to really push yourselves to meet the challenges and expectations, which we've done. And one thing for sure is we go into next season full of confidence and optimism that we can absolutely nail what we set out to do, and those targets will be higher and better again on all fronts.
And then moving on to yourself, James. Obviously, we've talked about the step up in the evolution of the football club and the 3-year plan that we've got internally. Just give us a bit of a flavour what kind of the conversations that went on with yourselves and the board of directors to basically make Ben the new chief executive. I think it's a position that's not been held at the club since 2013, and it just shows the forward thinking of the football club at this moment in time.
Yeah, and it is an evolution. That word keeps coming up, but that's exactly what it is. When we originally sat down, we were a very operationally involved, by necessity, board of directors, and we knew that wasn't A, sustainable, and B, actually good for the football club. Having lots of people part-time involved in things is not terribly efficient, and as Ben has seen and experienced firsthand, trying to get rid of all of those part-time people, and so being able to get on with the job is really an important part of it. But it's an evolution. I was looking back over the first iteration of the objectives we set ourselves as part of the 3-year plan. Well, number 1 was install a general manager by May 2021, which obviously we've done. Number 2 was optimising the board's effectiveness and reorganising the management structure, and that's an evolution. That's the piece. Ben stepping up to CEO is the next natural step in that. We could have potentially hired a CEO back in May 21, but I think we probably would have been jumping too many steps forward. Whereas, to bring in Ben, enable him to win over everybody around the club, inside, outside, external, internal, and then evolve into the role has made a lot more sense. And also, Ben has naturally won the trust of every member of the board. So when Ben tells me or Charlie or Rod or Graham to get out of the way and leave him to get on with it, we will do. Whereas, it's less easy to do that when you don't have that relationship. So that's clear. But then if you go through all the other things we said we were going to do, we said we were going to create partnerships with the MSC family of organisations. Well, that's what we've been doing with the Trust, what we've been doing with community sports, what we've been doing with the ladies team. We said we were going to look at the club's transfer and player development strategy. Well, that's a longer term thing, and we've still, I think, got a lot of work to do on that. And it does change slightly depending on who the first team manager is. But we have generated some significant transfer revenue in the last year and a half, and that has made a big difference. Back in February, March 2021, when we were doing this, we were budgeting for League One. Well, we've now gone through 2 budgeting for League One processes, which is fantastic. And then the 6th one, which is the one that I think Ben has really got to grips with, is that improving every aspect of the club's operations. We said we wanted to achieve a 10 out of 10 family excellence recommendation rating as soon as possible. And obviously you guys have done incredible work to achieve that recommended status. And there's still, lots of room for us to improve. But that improving everything has probably been the most noticeable thing for me off the field and around the football club. And that's huge credit to Ben. We said we were going to maximise commercial revenue. Again, that's leapt enormously. We wanted to refresh and relaunch the MFC brand. Well, look behind us. This is, the first new bits of that. And the number 9, which was the one that we were told would be impossible, we said we wanted to double the fan base by 2023. Well, it's 2022 and it's done. Now, we've got a lot of work to do to maintain that. And that's going to be down to you guys. It's going to be down to the fans. It's going to be down to the family of organisations. It's going to be down to everybody who's involved around the club. But yeah, we have actually ticked off 8 out of those 9, and we've made huge improvements on the one that I'd say we've still got work to do. So now it's about coming up with the next step, and actually that's down to Ben, because he's the professional. He's the person who's doing this job, and a lot of much cleverer people than me have said, the way to run an organisation properly is to hire good people and then get out of their way. And that's, I think, the stage at which we're entering now. We need to let you and Ben and everybody around you do your jobs and call upon us for support when you need it, rather than us telling you what to do. And that's already been happening. So evolution is the word. This is just the most natural next step in that evolution.
I think just to add to a couple of things there, I think, thinking back to when we were formulating the plan, one thing that James, myself, and all the board and Ben have been very, very good at is we're trying to improve things every day in every way a little bit, and that continuous improvement's really, really helped everyone in the football club. We are very, as you know, we're very ambitious. Want to make sure these things happen, and I think people challenged us that this wasn't going to be possible, and for people who know me and James particularly, and that's the most motivating thing you can ever say to me. People said this plan is not going to work. This has been tried before. It's never going to happen. Saying to James, we'll never set 4,000 people in the football ground. Those things drive us on to succeed even more. And I think that's one of the big reasons why Derek was so impressed when he came back, because he was very, very impressed with what we'd achieved. Because obviously we were just starting out when he went, and we're very, very proud of everyone who's been involved. And Ben's going to drive it forward from now.
Yeah, and what's happening now is where perhaps we were trying to challenge each other on the board a couple of years ago. It's actually you guys that are doing the challenging now. There's been a number of conversations in the last few months where I thought, well, we might not be able to do that. And it's been someone like Ben who's gone, no, I think we can do that. Or let's look into it. Let's do some proper investigation into this. And it's wonderful. It's exactly as it should be. The ideas should come from everybody, and the organisation should be driven at the right level. So yeah, so this is just the next natural step in an evolution towards being that properly sustainable and competitive League One football club. And for the avoidance of doubt, no matter what we can or can't achieve in the next few months or this season, competitive in League One means exactly that. It doesn't mean hanging around in 19th and 20th and surviving. It means being competitive. It means actually doing exactly what Derek did in League Two. It won't happen immediately, but that's what we've got to be targeting.
Absolutely, and the only way you can move forward is by making them changes and putting them little subtle effects in to build the club into what it should be, which is a competitive and sustainable football club at a League One level. And Ben, you'll talk us through some of the changes that are made behind the scenes. Obviously, we're still looking to improve in certain aspects of it, looking to recruit a HR manager as well, which we're going through the processes, and that just shows how forward thinking this football club is at this moment in time.
Yeah, we've made a lot of changes this year. It took some time to assess where we were at and a little bit more time to decide what we needed to do. But we are now at a point, I think this time last year, we had 4 or 5 people that we needed to bring in and add to the existing base of colleagues that we had, because there were gaps in our resource and what we could provide. The joy for us this year is we've got those people in, we've got the people who were already here and doing a great job. We've managed to make their lives a little bit easier by taking some aspects off their plate that was probably overstretching them, and ultimately not allowing us to do everything we wanted to do. So now people can focus on their departments and their roles and do them to the best of their abilities, with the right support from myself and the board when needed. Try and do, instead of looking at what do we want the place to look like, and it being a little bit pie in the sky, we go, what are the challenges that we're facing at the moment and what's the best solution, and work that way around, rather than trying to solve or put answers in place and people in place to perhaps issues that aren't really there. And then, you find out a few months down the line, well, we've got someone doing something that might not be appropriate, but we've still got a gap here. So we've looked at it, and ultimately, I think bringing in a HR manager will help underpin a lot of the challenges we currently face, bring a lot of departments closer together. We're huge here about, not just hiring really good people now, as James said, but once we get them in, offering them real opportunity to develop and take ownership of what they're doing. I take no greater joy than people on a personal level looking around and saying, I'm much more rounded than I was a year ago. And yes, working for Morecambe's been a wonderful experience. And at some point we might have to shake their hand and say, go on and work in the Premier League, because the opportunity is there. And whilst, yes, it gives us a bit of a headache trying to replace them, they'll leave the place in a far better, at a far better standard and level than what they joined. And that helps us attract good talent as well, if we can act as a place that can develop people. So I've got no doubt that'll happen over the next few years, but I'd take no greater joy in that, but what we like to do is try and keep things or keep people as motivated and hungry as we can. So we've looked at how we can improve that, and a HR function will certainly assist. So it's different challenges probably to what we faced a year ago, but these are challenges that we relish and that we're really looking forward to getting the right people in place and just, again, like I say, taking us to that next level once more. It's not been about going from 5 out of 10, 6 out of 10 in some places to 10 out of 10 overnight. That won't happen, and it's not sustainable, which is it's been sensible about things and walking before you run.
And then touching on a few of those things that you just touched on there in terms of turning your 5 and 6s to 7 and 8s, I think that was a big part of what's happened this week. Obviously, down at the awards night in Anfield, our events team were rightly given an award for outstanding contribution. Our events manager, Jodie, the first time that the award has ever been given out, she won it in its inaugural year. And then also the events team as a whole earning the bronze status for an event at a small stadium. When we say small, I think it's like 1,500 seats within a events capacity. And that just shows how brilliant of a job that they've done in really testing times.
Absolutely. And, that's one example which has been fantastic. It's great to get recognised. Sometimes, a lot of people have worked very, very, very hard over a number of years to make that happen. And again, it's a sign of the improvement. We've set the standard as the best hospitality offer in a small football ground. And of course, Jodie's Outstanding Contribution Award, we're incredibly proud of. She's a fantastic person to have on board, really driven to improve herself and the department. And again, she's working in a team there that allow her to do that and want to do the same themselves. And as James said earlier, ultimately, it's about, for us, getting good people in the right places, supporting them where we need to, but let them get on with it and challenge them to go and improve matters. And we've done that in hospitality and events over a number of years, and this is the year we've been recognised for it again. It's been done in family excellence. I know you're on here, so I've got to say it, but the feedback on the media and communications, I nearly said hospitality there, just thinking of food. The media and communications has improved no end, thanks to you and Matt and the wider team. And again, commercial has excelled this year. We set some really ambitious targets and we've achieved them. And not to forget anyone, there's a lot of functions that people don't see in a football club. So we've got a ticket office now that's much slicker than it was. And Anya's so hungry to drive and develop that, and as well as the supporter liaison work she does, which has been shown as best practice within Football League newsletters and seminars, which we're really proud of. But there's so many functions that people may not realise. We've got safeguarding, which again we're now seen as a flagship organisation, and the EFL have hosted their latest meeting here and asked Sally O'Donnell, who's headed that up for us, to share some of the things we do on match days and non-match days. So there's so much goes into it, and there's so many people that have to be bang on it and positive and ambitious and all working on the same page. And like I said, I think we've got the basis of that now, and we've just got the wheels turning, and it's a case of how far we can, move that and accelerate that whilst not losing sight of what we're about. And that's ultimately that we're a football club that's here to serve the community and the people of Morecambe and the wider district. And, again, as James touched on earlier, our connection and links into the Community Foundation are so important to us, and work's been done on that and will continue to be done on that. But they're a fantastic arm of what we do. And the impact they've had on the community this season has been exceptional. And they're looking to grow and harness the reputation and goodwill that being in League One has offered us. So many exciting aspects to, ultimately a lot of people see what goes on a Saturday afternoon, and that's football, that's what it's about. But there is a business and a club behind it, and that's performed very, very well down to the people in place this year.
Definitely, and sticking with the community sports team as well as other people that you mentioned there, they've played a big part in helping us achieve Family Excellence Award for the first time since 2018, I think it was. Anya Wood there, as you mentioned, the ticket office manager, but also the Shrimps SLO. She's played a huge part in making sure everybody's on the right page, and we're all hitting the strands and the targets that we were set out in the first visit when the EFL came. I mean, all of a sudden it changed around. It was literally a season of two halves, shall we say, and when achieving that family excellence status for the first time in over 4 years, and what an outstanding achievement that was for the football club.
Yeah, we were delighted. Like I say, that was one of the things we really did set out to do at the start of the season. And family excellence, yes, it's the right word, but at the same time, there's 7 or 8 key areas that it covers, and it's not just about, ultimately, it's not just about family of 4 or whatever traditional, family you would call it. There's a lot that goes into it. It's looking at the pre-match communication and how easy it is to buy a ticket, and are the people you speak to helpful and knowledgeable, right through to when you're walking up to the stadium on a match day, what's it like? When you're in, what's the service like? Post-match, how are you looked after? So whilst it is called the Family Excellence Rating, it is a very good barometer, I feel, for matchday operations as a whole, and it's a little bit wider encompassing than just what do you do, say, for children, but it does address that as well. We set out to improve the score, which we've done. We got top 3 most improved in Football League, and like I say, the work that goes in, we've got a working group that Anya runs that covers most departments that get together each month, look at the feedback, what can we change, how do we communicate that with our supporters, what can't we do right now, but again, can we put it on our list of what we'd love to do when we can? And there's some things that we just can't do for practical or financial reasons, but again, we'll get back to people and say, look, we can't do it and this is why, but thanks for letting us know, and if you've got any more ideas, come to us. So again, we'll be targeting improvement on that front next year, no doubt. That'll be an important aspect and barometer of how we're performing next year. Can we win most improved again? I don't see any reason why not. We've got some really good plans to do it. We think we've got a way, and again, it's ultimately listening to supporters. How do we think we can improve, and what can we do? It's very straightforward, and it's about not overcomplicating it. It's just listening to people, taking ideas on board, and getting on with them as soon as we can. Which again isn't always the day after, but it's putting a list together, putting a plan together, and going about checking them off in a practical sense. So that'll be on the list of things to do again next year. Can we get a gold rating, one of the top 10 in the country in a couple of years? That's what we're going to set out to do. We set that out when I came in last year. Can we achieve gold status and be seen as a flagship? And we'll go all out for that. And you know what? Even if we don't achieve that at the end of next season, even if we don't quite reach that level for whatever reason, because everyone else is progressing so quick, we'll be in a heck of a lot better place for the work that's put in, and ultimately that'll benefit the supporters and people of Morecambe.
Absolutely. And just looking back since the last time we spoke, there's obviously been a lot of things that have changed around the grounds and obviously in the ground as well. Looking at certain aspects of the Bartercard Terrace with the roof being installed, and also the club retail partners, the terrace coming on board in recent months as well, which has really boosted the offerings in that club shop. I think Charlie basically emptied it one weekend when he came up. So it really shows how much we're trying to improve, not just on little bits here and there, but everything across the board.
As you say, we've tried to keep it as simple yet as ambitious as possible, and the brief is to improve absolutely every aspect we can at Morecambe Football Club. So to do that, you have to look at every aspect and say, where are we at, and how can we make things a little bit slicker or improved, or take them a step further if they're already very good or excellent. And that's what we've done. There's absolutely nothing too small to consider, and there's nothing too big and scary that we can't get our teeth into, that might take a little bit longer to change and get the wheels turning on that. But that's how we've viewed it. The ticketing operation, have we improved it this year? I absolutely believe so. The shop, yep, we're in a better place. Reception, even when you walk in, there's a nice friendly welcome from Adele. It was very knowledgeable, very helpful. Every touch point, we've either improved or is on our list to have a look at and take further. It's only so many hours in a day and so many days in a year, and I try to keep sight of that sometimes, because you always want to be at your end goal in as quick a time as possible. But as I say, just taking a step back and having a good plan sometimes helps you achieve that more than diving into everything and spreading yourself too thin. Charlie's got a question. He's waved a couple of times, so I'm going to stop talking and let Charlie get in here.
I'm just going to say something that Ben and I have been. We did an HR manager interviews in the last week or so, and we've been talking about this, promoting the role really to these candidates. And Morecambe Football Club is a football club, right? And we love the football aspect, but more importantly, to achieve our goals, it has to be seen as a business, and it's a business that strives for excellence. Yeah. We want to be as excellent as we can possibly be by being the best we can be. And I think just saying about the people, every single person in the whole football club has improved their performance markedly. Every single, I can't think of anyone who can't. You didn't mention Rob the groundsman there, for example. The pitch is amazing. All these things that every single person has really contributed to it, and it's because of a culture of positivity. You may notice that James and I are quite positive people. Ben is as well. Rod, Graham, Mick, everyone involved in the club is, and that's because we're positive. And if we just continue the ambition that we've got, and everyone keeps going, the people who aren't as positive get sort of dragged along, and they have a change of mindset, and that's who we are today. And it makes me so proud to see everything going on that we've achieved, from just like looking back on this vision after the year. Happy Wembley anniversary, by the way.
I think the final thing that you just touched on there as well is the amount of people that have come into the ground on a more consistent basis. Season ticket take-ups have been fantastic already. And like you said, as we're filming now, it's only the 31st of May and we've sold just under 1,600. I think it's 1,599 if my maths is correct. I think 848 standing and 751 seated. It just shows the appetite is there. And obviously we'll continue to push people to be part of something that is really taking off, and it's more of a question and a discussion point for all three of you more than anything.
Go on, Ben, take it first.
I'll let James go first because he likes this one, because it was you who set this out, just over 12 months ago with the concept. I know we spoke about it just before I came in, and you said, how do you think this will work? And I think I'd been trying to get the same thing in place for a few years. Because it just made so much sense. There was no downsides to it. But what it has done is accelerated and helped us achieve what you set out to do in 3 years, in 12 months. But, ultimately for us, it's absolutely incredible, the take up. We weren't happy with standing where we were 2 years ago. So we set out to increase attendances here by putting in a really positive and strong and affordable offer to our supporters, which was bought into, which is what it comes down to, taken up. Supporters did buy the season tickets, turn up regularly, and we took that number up to 2,500 last year, while setting out to ultimately achieve 2,000. We said if we can do that, that'll be amazing. Got back to 2,500. We're not standing still again. I see no reason whatsoever why we can't take that to 3,000 this season. Like you say, we're on 1,600. I think they're going up by the hour today. I think we've had to put a second update on the totalizer in the last half hour because we've got so many gone through today. We'll soon hit 1,000 standing. We hope to hit 1,000 seating this year, which we didn't quite do last year. And for people of Morecambe, our supporters, the wider public and community, continue to shout about it and let your colleagues, friends, family know what a great day out it can be down here, and football's great now, and the teams that are visiting a completely different caliber to perhaps where we've been over the years. Derby County coming this year. What is it to not enjoy and want to come in and have a watch and be a part of?
Yeah, and you know what, the evolution and where we were a year ago versus where we are today, just in terms of the actual mechanics, they do say a lot about how far we've come. So just around about a year ago, probably a year and about 2 days ago, the season ticket initiative was being sort of formulated. It actually came about as a result of a suggestion from a fan. One of the guys who runs one of the blogs on Twitter said to me, you might want to take a look at this. I did, replied to a DM on Twitter. Somebody said, have you looked at what Bradford are doing? And I'd heard about it. So I called Mr. Sparks over at Bradford. He explained how it had worked, but explained what they got wrong at Bradford and said, if you did it like this, but with these changes, that might be a good idea. So then I sat down with the then finance manager, and literally it wasn't quite fag packing, but it wasn't far off it in terms of the resources we had at the time. We were still working through all of the pandemic related financial challenges and insurance claims and all these other things. But we came up with a scheme. Everybody said, "Yeah, let's do it." And then it was a couple of us sitting behind a PowerPoint in our home offices, trying to work out what to call it. And Brand New Bright Tomorrow was born out of a bit of a conversation. You fast forward a year. And we are today on the same day that we were promoted last season, and we've got all of this team that Ben has built, and that is all of these either invigorated people who've been with the club a long time or brand new people who've brought fresh ideas. We've got new branding. There's a fantastic video going to go out in the next few days, and which we didn't have the capacity or the capability to produce last year. There's going to be adverts on buses driving around the North Lancs and South Lakes area, which are going to say, get yourself involved in the football club and get yourself a season ticket. And we've sold 1,600 season tickets. We weren't even on sale for another 3 weeks last year. So the whole thing is just more professional and more slick. And I think me and Charlie can probably both say this. It's in a way, for us, we're not as involved as we were before, which is exactly as it should be. And occasionally I miss it a bit. I miss having a conversation about fixing the ladies' loos on the Berlin Wall side, which is where we were as a board a couple of years ago. But it's wonderful that we're not in that position. It's wonderful that we're sitting here. And, the point I'll always say is this job never, ever gets done. Rod's told us since we first got involved in the board, and Graham as well, this job is really just about leaving it better than it was when you found it. And that's what mine and Charlie's role is what all of our roles are. This job never gets done. So Derek was one of the catalysts for getting rid of the little old Morecambe tag and really sort of giving the club belief. He'll always be the one who reminds me and Charlie when we're saying how great things are. He'll be the one who says, yeah, but you've not done that yet. And he's quite right. And there'll always be something we haven't done, which is just exactly as it should be. But yeah, where we were a year ago versus where we are today, and where we were a year ago versus where we were a year before that, it is quite astonishing. And it's wonderful to have been a small part of it.
Any final words from yourself, Mr. Appleyard, to finish us off and bring the episode 2 of the Vision to an end?
I was going to mention mushy peas, but I don't think I will do in this occasion.
Right, we'll end it there then. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. It's a pleasure as always. We'll obviously try and get episode 3 filmed shorter than 6 months because everything just took off, I think, towards the end of November and beyond at the start of 2022. But thank you very much for your time, and we'll see you again soon.